From the great halls of their house, there are assembled three who hope to one day be the world's greatest driving heroes. Created from the cosmic legends of the universe comes our team captain, the Vision, Bill Fisher, and their soon-to-be Wonder Woman, Vicky Fisher, and our Captain Marvel and head flight trainee, Jennifer Scripchuk. Their mission: to fight injustice, share what is right and wrong, to get you out of your house and come out racing with them and serve all mankind. They are the Garage Heroes in Training Team.
Dominating with Dawson.
All right, Ben, we've got one that probably shouldn't take terribly long, but is very important to us. When we're racing our car, where should our hands be, and what would you consider to be good hand position, and where would you not like to see hands going?
Gotcha. The very first thing about driving on track is you want to have both hands on the wheel all the time unless you're shifting gears. As soon as you shift the gears, it needs to go right back. You don't want to put your hand in there and wait forever to shift the gears. It just goes over there just for the shift and comes right back. So you've got both hands on the wheel all the time.
Even if it's only second, you're going to third, and in like 15 or 20 seconds, you don't want to just sit there and wait for it?
Never, never, ever. Make it your habit to always have both hands on the wheel, and the only deviation is if you got to give somebody a point or a signal, or you're reaching out to make a shift. It's just good muscle memory to get into. I see a lot of accomplished racers and track drivers who just plenty happy to ride around half the time with one hand on the wheel. It just drives me crazy. So, and it's not safe. You want to have the full control.
Don't want to do the palm turn in the wheel.
No palm turns. Don't put a necker knob on your wheel or anything like that.
No.
So and for me when I'm driving, I like to have my hands somewhere between 10 and 2 and 9 and 3. It depends on the shape of the wheel that you're racing
right.
to. And the idea is you don't want to stick your hands kind of inside the diameter of the wheel where the wheel spokes are. You don't want to make it a habit of keeping your thumbs in there, because if something happens where the wheel starts spinning that's sort of out of your control, it could hurt your hands or break your thumbs. I've heard. I've never seen anybody do it, but everybody always says that. So I try to keep my thumbs out of the wheel, but that's the basic hand positioning, is that they both need to be there, and you want to have them not riding around the bottom, not hugging the top, both hugging the top like Mark Martin or whatever used to drive. Mm-hmm. So you want to spread your hands out, because it'll give you the most control control over the wheel if you have your hand positioning balanced out. So and once you get rolling, there are a couple of schools of thought. There's the school of thought that your hands stay static on the wheel and you move the wheel with both hands, whichever direction you need to go for as much steering angle as you need to do. Then the other school of thought is that you will shuffle the wheel between your hands, largely keeping your hands at 10 and 2 or whatever, and not just shuffling hand over hand, shuffling the wheel back and forth. And that's not my preferred method. I'm the kind of driver that never likes to let go of the wheel. And in most cases, even if you need to almost fully cross over 180, and I got to go much further than that. So it's rare that you're ever having to kind of hand yourself more wheel if you have the non-shuffle steering style.
So your hands are basically almost still where they're at the 2 and 10 or 9 and 3.
Well, yeah. So instead of always having your hands in the same place relative to your shoulders, you're moving your hands with the wheel. So your hands stay with the wheel, and instead of kind of shuffling the wheel, so that your hands always stay in the same position relative to the top of your shoulders.
Okay. All right. Very well. So no shuffle steering and no palm turning. And
well, I can't say that. I mean, there are plenty of really good drivers and people who go out there and win national championships who are shuffle steerers. There are effective race car drivers out there doing it. And there's also ones who don't ever left foot brake. There are also ones who never heel toe shift gears. It's just some things are a matter of preference. I just prefer that and think it's better just because I'm always right.
All right, very well. I can't argue with that. At least until I can beat you at one time, but that's going to be a while.
Well, I don't want to give anybody a complex about it if they are shuffle steers. There are plenty of people out there who do it. It's just not as widely accepted as the other way.
All right, very well. Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Dominating with Dawson.
All right, Ben, we're trying to make this easy for people coming in, and with our sport, with it comes several different types of jargon. So we're going to have a jargon section every now and then. A lot of people, when they drive their normal car around the highways and around town, the car basically stays in a position where it's essentially driving on rails. But when you start looking at car videos, when you start seeing car reviews, when you start talking HPDEs and racing, they'll start talking about the car rotating, and a car has good rotation. What are they talking about?
Well, they're talking about making the car change direction. So if you're headed down the straightaway on the track, we mean the next turn is a right-hand turn. That means you're gonna have to rotate the car. You're gonna have to pitch the car to the right. So there's a few different ways to do that. If you're on the road, typically you're sitting at a stoplight and you need to rotate through a left turn. You're just gonna let off the brake and let your automatic start rolling your car through the turn and give it a little gas. What we're talking about is coming down from 120 miles an hour, getting down to 50 miles an hour and slinging our way through a turn and hopefully coming out about 70 miles an hour.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So totally different things than driving the road. So what we had to do is you're headed toward a turn on track, and ideally you don't want to turn the wheel at all. You want to keep the wheel straight and just keep going the same speed you're going, but you're going to have to compensate and make a turn. So it means you're going to have to transfer the weight from the back to the front on the front brakes as you turn in. You're going to have to turn the wheel in concert as you come off the throttle and you're on the brakes. So you're going to do all these things at one time to rotate the car into the corner, and different shape corners are going to demand different approaches for this. So that's basically what we're talking about. Is just turning the car. And some cars do it great. Some cars have a tougher time.
Does rotation imply that some of the wheels are slipping, or is that different?
I mean, typically you're going to be slipping the wheels a little bit if you're going fast enough. If you're hearing the wheels chirping or talking during a rotation, that means you're probably using most or all of the available grip. So yeah, your wheels should be slipping a little bit if you're a good track driver and you're somebody who's working your way up through traffic in a race. You're probably going to hear some wheel talk.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So if anybody was ever curious about rotation, that's kind of the intro. We'll get into rotation in much deeper in a future episode. Thank you, Ben.
Sure.
Dominating with Dawson.
So Ben, we've got jargon. We've got jargon everywhere. I hear people talking about understeer. What does understeer mean to you?
Well, we just recently talked about rotation. So understeer is an under rotation. You throw an input at the car with the steering wheel, and you expect it to do this amount of turning. I turn the wheel this much. I expect it to turn this much. That means the car didn't turn as much as you expected. It means the front wheels are turned, but they're just not giving you the angle that you should when you turn. So it means that they're it's pushing. People call it a push. People call it understeer.
Plowing. Yeah.
Yeah, so you turn and you just don't get the results you expected. So a lot of times it has to do with how your car is set up, or just in general, if you run into turn one at the R with a school bus, it's going to push. So
if more predominant in front wheel drive, rear wheel drive, or
it's more predominant in front wheel drive. There's there are ways to address it with your suspension setup.
Okay.
I've always had rear wheel drive cars. The Miata I raced and tracked and drove on the street for years and years. That car was terminally understeer car. Right around by the time I sold it, I had it pretty well balanced, but I never got it. I would prefer a car that's oversteering a little bit. I can never get quite enough of that car. We finally, with our E30 race car, our endurance car, it is finally oversteering enough. It's not scary oversteering, but we've got a welded diff in there. It's a welded 410, so that thing will really come up off the corner like a scalded dog, and it's kind of fun.
All right, so for Peter at home, he's using a analogy. He's not talking actually, so don't.
That's
write
correct.
into
No actual scalded dogs.
Yes, and if your car is understeering, is there a way? There's probably two ways, right? You could probably adjust the setup of the car, or you could adjust your driving. So let's put setup on this side. Is there a way to adjust your driving to minimize or deal with understeer?
I mean, sure. The easiest thing to try is if I've been hammering away at this corner the same way over and over again, and I'm not getting the turn in, I'm just going to try something different. So first thing I would try would be backing at the brake zone. So if I'm braking at the 3 and I can barely get turned for the corner, and the car's just pushing all the way through, it might mean I'm asking more of what the front tires and the front brakes and the whole car can do, trying to get through there. So maybe I need to back it up a little bit. So a lot of times I've definitely faced understeer in several different kinds of platforms, racing different cars, and you just have to change something. But a lot of times the easiest thing to change is braking a little bit earlier, turning in a little bit differently, maybe waiting a little later to turn in and throw a bunch of angle at it. Whatever you were doing is not working. So try something different. But those are try changing one thing at a time about your approach and see how it goes.
So it's not always the car. Sometimes it's the guy behind the wheel. or the girl?
Oh yeah. I mean, you could just definitely be not. You might be a new car to you or whatever, but if you're not feeling it, I drove the Knox Vegas Lowballers Hoopty
Ooh.
Corn. That's that
Yep.
Contour with a first gen Mustang body welded onto it. It's a front drive car. It's got plenty of power and it had a pretty nice dip in there. But still, it took me a while to kind of get used to how it wanted to yank me up off the corner, and I just had to kind of keep adjusting inputs until I kind of got to where it was working the way I wanted to, and I was out there, I was able to get faster and faster, and I think I was the fastest car on the track until it suddenly wasn't.
Oh, that happens. I'm usually the fastest car on the track until somebody else goes on the track. So.
There you go.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Dominating with Dawson.
Ben, it's jargon day again.
All right.
We talked about rotation. We talked about understeer. Let's talk about oversteer. Oversteer is
sweet
other
oversteer.
than understeer, obviously.
Loose
but
is
what does it
fast.
mean? Loose is fast. I've heard that too.
Whew, man, give me that wheel going the wrong way in my hands. I love it.
Little oppo lock to throw more jargon into our jargon.
Yes, opposite lock. Your wheel is locked in the opposite direction of the turn. Yeah, gosh, I love oversteer. I never get enough of it. But I mean, you get to a point where it's counterproductive. But what it means is that you've turned the wheel a certain amount, and the whole car, mostly leading with that butt end, turns more than you expected to turn with how much angle you gave it. Does that make sense?
It does. So it's kind of what I always thought was, oversteer was always, to me, implied when they talked about rotation. But we talked about rotation earlier, so maybe I was wrong about my jargon.
It's an over rotation, just like
Yeah.
understeer is an under rotation. So it's an over quantity of what you thought you were going to get. And, there are plenty of factors that could get it. You might have your rear tire pressure set at 100 pounds each or something like that. You just spinning your wheels coming off the corner. Or, it might be something that has to do with your approach. Maybe you're trying to get on the throttle way too fast and your car's just kind of breaking loose. Trying to
So basically, your front has more effective traction than your rear.
That's right. You're overrunning how much rear traction you have, so the rear tires want to break loose.
Okay, so
You might have it on your way into a corner, middle of the corner, on the way out. Same thing with understeer. It could occur anywhere, but that's it's a symptom.
That's a good point. So if we were in a car and this car's showing oversteer and it's either more than we want or not helping us with lap times, what could the driver do to adjust to reduce the oversteer?
Sorry, there's cars playing around out in the street. I'm just looking to see what's going on, making sure nobody's cutting donuts in the street because I want to be out there if they are. Because that's
we'll send you out after them if that way you can show up to it the right way.
I'll report back next week. Sorry. So something you could do if you're going into a corner and you're getting on the brakes in the car and you're trying to turn in and the car just really wants to oversteer. One thing you can definitely do is back it up an entire brake marker. So if you're braking at 3, come in and try it at the 4. I mean, for most of us talking here, it's an HPDE or an endurance race. It doesn't matter. It's going to be out there for a long time, and trying a slightly different approach is not going to keep you from getting a trophy. So try something different. Change one thing at a time with your approach and see what happens.
But what about the F1 scouts that I'm trying to impress at my Lemons race?
They're going to know what's going on. It's fine.
All right. Oh, they realize I'm dealing with inferior equipment, and they see
totally. It's not their first day at the track. They're gonna blame anything but you. They're there for you. So you do you. They're gonna get it. Don't worry about it.
All right. I just don't want to lose my multi-million-dollar ride.
Right. Yeah, sure. And that's a concern, but main concern is not breaking the car.
All right. Very well. All right. Thank you, sir.
Dominating with Dawson.
I was just flipping around. How about penalty box discussion?
Oh man, that's giving away. If I do this, I'm going to give everybody the keys to the box. So let's just do it. Let's give everybody the keys to the box.
All right, very well. All right, Ben. I know that this never happened to you, but occasionally we have members of our team and members of the Lemons community who go into the penalty box. And they get into there, and the judge starts talking to them, and they don't know what to do or what to say. You have any tips for them?
Believe it or not, I have been subject to the lemons penalty box more times than it's comfortable for me to admit. But if you lose control or make a mistake in the car, you're going to go to the penalty box. Or it happens to people where they think it's your car and it's not your car. You still go in and they go, "What are you doing here?"
Yeah.
And you go, "I don't know." And they say, "All right, we go back out," and you just lose laps arbitrarily in lemons, and you don't care because it's lemons and it's great. Who gives a I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Who was worried about such an outcome? But yeah, so and in lemons, everything is completely subjective. So you get called into the box to talk about whatever you did to get there. So whether it's contact with another car, you put a couple wheels off, or your brake light's not working. This last race I had to come in because our brake light stopped working. So
or something's dragging, something's leaking.
But anyway, you're in there because something is upset, either that you did or your car's doing. So you're gonna have to talk to the judge about it. And these judges, a lot of times they're maybe not racers themselves, but they're people who know what's going on at the car race and they know what you did because the corner workers call in whatever happened on track. So they're gonna have some advanced information. So if you get in there thinking it's the right time to tell the judge, your version of the story, a lot of times they already know what happened. Is that your experience, Bill?
Yeah, well, I've heard about people who go to the penalty box.
Right, yeah, not you.
I've heard, rumors.
But yeah, so you get there. These judges are people who have already talked to 100 people before you rolled in there that day, so it's not going to be anything new for them. So the bad thing to do is to roll in there like you have anything to say other than "you're right" and "here's what I'm going to do to avoid doing that again." That's how you get out of the penalty box. You roll in there and go, "Yep, you're right. I did that." And they're going to say, "Well, what are you going to do so it doesn't happen again, so I don't see you again?" And you say, "All right, well, I'm going to give myself an extra brake marker to get slowed down so I don't drive through the brake zone again. Or, I'm going to make sure that I never drive that close to another car in the corner so that I don't knock the mirror off again." So as long as you have a cogent, clear plan and a good attitude and you're cool about it, you're going to get to roll right back out and keep racing. You're going to lose some time. But if you go in there and you want to start arguing about, "I had the line, it was my line," or "I was this, I didn't do that," when you clearly did, whatever it is, if you try to go
I've got a comp license,
Yeah, I've been racing SCCA for blah, blah. They don't want to hear it. The only approach is to go in there, own whatever it is that's going on, even if it's a mechanical with your car, own it, say thank you. Because, hey, if you're in there, you might as well say thank you. So,
yeah.
Because because literally, the long and short of it is these are people who are helping you become a better racer. Absolutely. Lemons Box is absolutely helping me become a better race driver. It's improved my racecraft because it's made me be so much more cognizant of the results if I screw up. So it makes you drive a whole lot cleaner just because it's a competition element. You just don't want to mess up and lose time.
Yep. One tire off and you're parking.
So ultimately these are people who are helping you become a safer, better racer, and so it's okay to say thank you when they help you out.
Yep. So self-report or don't self-report?
Never self-report.
Okay. Never self-report.
Yeah, you just don't. There's always a chance you might not get called. Just don't volunteer for it. And if they call you in and go, why didn't you come in? Blah blah blah. Just you can always say you're confused.
Well, that's not a factually incorrect statement usually when you're racing.
Exactly. I'm racing a car. I don't know what the hell is going on. I'm just trying to survive on the racetrack. I did what? What happened? Oh, I guess so. I'm really sorry. Yeah, I'm definitely not doing that again. Let me just we'll try to go back out and see what happens. Hey, and I'll tell you the truth is sometimes if you go out there and you get 2 black flags in a row, they might just say, "Who's next on your team? You're getting out."
Yeah.
They know what's going on. Even if you're in the heat of the moment, you might be Mario Andretti, but that judge is going to look you in the eyes and do a head check on you too, right, Bill?
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard about these.
Still in the game.
This is true. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
Dominating with Dawson.
All right, so Ben, you just got back from a race and you had a red flag during the race, and then you overheard some people in the pits that may not have had a full understanding of what to do in a red flag. So when a red flag comes, what's your procedure, and what do you think people should be on guard and do and take care of it safely?
Sure. So when a red flag comes out, that means something has happened on track where it's not going to be safe for everybody to even just all roll to the pits. Everybody just has to stop where they are while the track personnel address the situation with either the track, a driver, or the car, or all three. So that's when you have to come to a stop. So you see a red flag displayed at the corner station, and the first thing to do is sort of vigorously wave your right hand sort of in between where the seats would be, just to let people behind you know that there's an upset condition and then you're going to slow down. So that kind of gets their attention first. So as soon as you see a red flag, you don't want to just slam on the brakes and just stop in the middle of the track. So the idea is you see a red flag, it's not a requirement to immediately stop. It's a requirement to come to a safe, controlled stop. So once you kind of alerted people behind you by waving, you want to sort of roll to a safe, controlled stop. And you want to do that so that you're able to see the nearest corner station, because that's where you're going to get your cue to start back up or come to the pits at the end. So if you do all those set steps, you'll be able to stop safely and nobody will hit you. If you just start firing away at the brakes, somebody will hit you in the back of your car.
So it happened to Vicky when she was at Watkins Glen. She did exactly that, only she came to a stop on one of the inclines at Watkins Glen. I know that's hard to imagine, an incline at Watkins Glen.
Yeah.
And she ended up baking her rotor and her brake pad together. So you probably want to get to a flat spot so you can either turn the car off and put it in gear or not have to stay on the brake the entire time.
Exactly. That's a great point. And I think a lot of people worry that they're going to violate some sort of sacred red flag code. But the idea is you come to a stop safely and in a position that's okay for your car to continue the race. So corner workers understand that you might roll back or you might roll forward to sort of level out in a place where you don't have to sit on the brakes. Because you could weld a pad to a rotor or something like that, and then you'll have to come back in the pits and fix it. So that hurts everybody. So the corner workers understand the mechanics of you having to stop your car. So it's not something to fear. A red flag is a big cooperative event. It's something where you're all going to work together to make sure that the emergency vehicles and the track personnel can work around you safely. So there's no games to be played, and there's no huge violation as long as you come to a safe stop. And some groups do and some groups don't, but also it's always safest just to roll to a stop to the right side of the track. It's just sort of the common usage of how to do it. And so in some cases, it's an indicator that you or the car are having a big problem if you pull off and to the left of the track, whether it's a red flag or anything. So
okay.
Sometimes not everybody does that, but in some different groups they see pulling off to the left as this is a bigger problem. Let's go take care of that guy first. So
But definitely get off the middle.
definitely get off the middle of the track where everybody who didn't see it is going to be going 100 miles an hour by there. And that's the same thing. Also, just as an aside, that's the same thing with putting up your pit signal at a track day or something like that. And this red flag procedure is the same for an HPDE or a track event or during a race. But also, if you're going to signal to come in the pit, you want to do that just because somebody else behind you may not have seen the black flag or whatever. It's just an idea. Anytime you're waving behind to let people know that you're going to come in the pits or there's no upset condition, it's just self-preservation because you don't want somebody to just come barreling into the back of your car.
Okay. And then the pro tip for you would be if you're near the start-finish timing lane, you want to stop on that and just casually roll backwards and forwards. Is that what it hurt?
Right. Just make laps. Make laps during that red flag, right?
Yeah, just start taking them off. Just keep clicking them off.
That's right.
All right, so hopefully that'll help everybody when they have a red flag. Hopefully nobody has one ever again, but something tells me they might.
Dominating with Dawson.
So Ben, let's talk about seating position and hand positions while trying to race competitively. What are you thinking about those?
Gotcha. As far as seating position, in my ideal seating position is one where I'm as low as I can get in the car, but still see as much as I need to see out over the dashboard and the hood. But in general, you want to have the weight as low as you can in the car, but also you want to be comfortable. You don't want to be stretching your legs so much that you could barely reach the pedals. I've raced with a co-driver who told me after we won a race that he was so short that he had to race with his lap belts loose just to be able to reach the clutch in my car. It was a Miata, so that's not ideal. That's not ideal either.
No. So how much bend do you want in your knee? Like a bicycle type bend? You don't want it fully straight, but you want some?
Yeah, you don't want your legs stretched out. I'm comfortable with less bend and then if you're sitting on the seat, a bench seat of a truck, and your knees are hanging straight down. I don't want that.
Right.
I want something pretty much just like you would have in a nice sporty coupe or something like that, but just a little bit lower to the ground.
Yeah, you don't want to have to do tippy toes on the clutch, right?
That's exactly right. So you want to have plenty of room, but I've also had to, I've raced in a bunch of different people's cars, and it's not ideal. And a lot of times you're not going to know what the seating situation is until you show up at the track and maybe meet the person for the first time or see the car for the first time. So I've definitely raced with my knees in my chest, different awkward seating positions and awkward mirror positions, things like that. Sometimes you just got to make the best of it. And just for anybody, this is a PSA for anybody walking up to a race car. The first thing you want to do is look around the cage and make sure it's a cage that you think is safe and is going to easily pass tech and be safe for you to race in. So that's just something you always do. It's easy to kind of forget and not take the time to inspect the cage in a car. But, as you're getting in there and looking at the seating position, it's a great time to look around at the spreader plates and everything on the cage and make sure you don't see any tacky welding or anything like that. So
Right.
that's a PSA for checking out your seating position. But I can make almost anything work in a seating position, even in an endurance race for a couple of hours, because at least for me, I get out there and I'm so excited when I'm driving. The last thing I'm thinking about is being cold or thirsty, or maybe not being in the most comfortable seating position. I can work all that out after my stint, but just about anything will work. But and ideally, as far as position between your seat and the wheel, you don't want your arms stretched out, because the more bend you have in your arms, the more fine motor control you have. If the wheel is all the way out at the full extension of your arms, you're not going to be able to make corrections as readily as you would if you had the wheel closer to you.
So is that where, like, if your shoulders are back, you want to have your wrist able to touch the wheel, the top of the wheel? Is that about right?
That seems about right. You just don't want to be at full extension, or you're not going to be able to twist the wheel as readily and quickly as you need to make corrections or adjustments to where you're headed. So that's my understanding. You don't want to be like the NASCAR guys where the wheel is like resting on their sternum. So somewhere between that and full extension, that's comfortable for you. So
right.
And these are all things you have to think of as you're putting your race car together. It might involve moving your seat or getting a different mount, but this is stuff you kind of have to nail down or fix. If you get a car from somebody else and decide to start running it, you're definitely going to have to pay attention to that, and it's worth the time and effort to get that right out of the gate.
Okay. And then mirrors. If you're running stock mirrors in the car, what would you like to do there? I'm
a fan of your driver's side mirror, really seeing what's on that side of the car. The center, the center mirror. If you got a wink or a convex mirror, that's gonna show you pretty much the whole picture anyway. But if it's stock mirrors, you just got the mirror that came in the car. I like to kind of point that straight at the back, and then the passenger side mirror, I really just want to be catching what's happening on the right side of the car. So I kind of do it like a triptych, like 3 panes. I usually use the center main rear view. I point it a little bit biased toward the left a little bit, because usually that's kind of where most stuff, where I'm paying attention to most. But I'm also, so I want to be able to see full field of view out behind the car, and I kind of split up the responsibility between the 3 mirrors.
So full field of view is a code for your side mirrors are not looking at your own car.
Right.
Yep. Okay. All right. Very well. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Ben, we've got all of our cars. We've been invaded by the 3-pedal cars. All of our cars have stick, manual transmission, Great. 3rd pedal, as God intended. But I think that we see a little bit of, when shifting, especially downshifting, we see a little bit of herky-jerky car instability, and the car is not stable. So when should you be downshifting into a turn, and what type of clutch pedal, let's call it action, because I can't think of any other word, it's late, clutch action should you be doing? And is this one of those spots where you'd want to be doing the blip of the throttle, or is there alternatives? And because the last thing you want to do is get your car unstable going into a turn, especially if it's fast.
Yeah, sure. So it sounds like you're sort of describing like a porpoising kind of situation where you're unstable and
or chirp for the back tires,
Yeah, that's definitely a bad scenario, especially if you're driving a high horsepower rear-wheel drive car, right? Because you start getting with a lot of those stick axle cars, they get axle hop and that kind of stuff. I mean, obviously, somebody like me, I think I have like maybe 110 horsepower in that Miata. So I don't know anything about that, but you want to keep it as smooth as you can, just to keep everything's copacetic in the driveline and keep the car under control. So
smooth as
definitely.
Fast. Smooth as fast.
And that's one of the places where that applies. And you want to be very smooth with your braking. You need to be pretty violent, but also pretty smooth. I mean, it needs to be all the braking you can get without locking the tires up as you're going in. And you want to hold that downshift. Ideally, you don't want to downshift until right before you're going to pick the throttle back up. So, I see some folks make the mistake in performance driving. They're driving at the very end of some straightaway there in 5th gear. And as soon as they start hitting the brakes, they bang that 4th gear downshift, and it's really high revs. It's more revs than you need, because they're not going to get back on the gas. They're still in the brake zone. They're still got tons of brake zone and tons of turning before they're going to get back to gas. So ideally, you want to hold that downshift until the last second, because also, it's going to be less revs and less of a violent transition if you're just blipping the gas a little bit. Maybe you got it down to where you're going to be coming out of the corner at 4,000 RPM, so all you're going to have to do is just blip it a little bit. So does that make sense? as far as
Does.
the gap flipping.
It does.
If Vicky would just not do it in iRacing, we wouldn't be blowing so many engines.
Yes, iRacing right now is showing all my faults.
Well, that's great. That's fantastic. That's a great tool to be using for this. So
Mm-hmm.
don't feel any shame about what you're doing in iRacing. It's all development. There are tons of fast racers I know who got good at it on iRacing or some sort of sim before they ever showed up at the tracks.
As soon as she touches the brake, it's blip. I'm like, stop.
Yep.
Do you hear the engine?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Which means I have a backseat driver right there.
It's awesome.
Yeah, but I mean, ideally, you get in there, you go to the. I'm gonna go break it at 3. So it's at the 3, and I'm breaking down to the 2. I'm breaking down to the 1. I'm starting to turn in. So maybe hold it till right before you're gonna turn in. But you do want to delay that downshift because it not just upsets the car, it can risk an over rev situation or something like that, or a money shift. So it's good to be deliberate and take your time. And I mean, for me, there's a lot of controversy about this, but I skip gears. So if I'm gonna go from 5th to 3rd. I'm also waiting so long and doing it. I'm in the brakes so long. I'm in the brakes. I got plenty of time to just slowly go from 5th to 3rd. If I'm not sure I got it, if I'm not sure if something feels wrong, I'll still do 5th, 4th, 3rd. I'll do 2 shifts. But if I can, most of the time, if it's a car I'm comfortable with and it's a car I've driven a lot, I'll skip gears just to skip that and also have less stuff going on. Because it's hard to maintain constant brake pressure while you're trying to do flipping the gas. So if I got my foot on the brake and I'm also trying to go over here and flip the gas, it's likely that the pedal is going to move around. So it takes a lot of practice before you're going to execute this really well. And it takes a lot of brake pressure to get the kind of pedal travel you need to be able to move your foot that way. So it's kind of one of those things you can mostly learn at the track and then practice on the street, kind of what you know the mechanics of. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Does. So the goal is match the engine revs to the effective wheel rotation through the gear. So that
right, you want to match the driveline speed to what the wheels are going to be doing when you pick up the gas.
So the car doesn't either get light in the front or light in the rear, or
it doesn't spin the rear tires or know what I mean, upset the car in a different way. So you want to do it as late as you can, because also there's less to do by the time you've already gotten the bulk of your braking done and you're already pretty set for your turn in. That's a great time to snap into that downshift. And like I said, I like to do it where I'm just going to do one gear, instead of trying to work my way down through 2 gears. It's just less stuff going on. But that opinion is not very. That's just a personal choice for me. People will tell you that's a terrible idea, and they're probably right. I don't know.
Okay, so Jennifer and Vicky both had the same teacher at a Hooked on Driving session at New Jersey Motorsports Park.
Okay.
And I'm not sure that you ever got your sequencing right for braking, downshifting, turn in. Do you guys feel like you have that under control now?
No.
Okay. So the idea is you want to get all the braking you can possibly get. So the idea in braking is I want to get every bit of braking right before the wheels lock up. If you got a car that gets into ABS, if you have the ABS anti-lock braking system on your car, it's okay to use that in the race. So I mean, if you're in the brakes and you start feeling the ABS hit, stay on it because that's good. That means it's working. So definitely, if you got ABS, use it as a competitive tool. But you want to get on the brakes, get on as hard as you can. I mean, it's ideally, if you get on the brakes and all of a sudden the car goes into ABS, it may not be that good of an idea unless it's what you expected. But you want to get as much braking as you can. So it's not like an idea. It's not an idea where you get on the brakes and step up the pressure. You want to jump on the pedal with all the pressure immediately. And if you lock them up a little bit, then you got to come. If you don't have ABS and the tires lock up, you got to come back off the brakes a little bit. But the idea always is you want every bit of braking. So if you drive up and you're used to braking at this, at this marker, but then you've suddenly gotten where you've gotten better and better at your braking, you might have to move it up because you're getting, you're using all the brakes. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it's likely that you're gonna have to learn a track and all right, I brake here, but then as you get better and better at applying the brakes going into that corner and getting your turn in done, it's likely that you'll have to work up to it because if you get good at maximizing your braking, getting all the braking grip that you can possibly get, it's likely that you're going to find yourself driving up to the corner like I was braking here, but I got better at it, so now I'm having to come off the brakes and drive down to the apex. So does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, but when they throw the clutch in is when they start having problems.
Okay,
right.
So we've all got the idea that we're braking as hard as we can in a straight line in the initial part of the brake zone. So in my case, I'm doing that. This is a podcast, so I'm holding my hands up to show everybody. But I'm I'm braking. I've still got my right foot on the brake, but I'm going to stay on the brake. I'm trying to think of it's so weird to think about how I do it, but I've already got my hand on the shifter, right? So I've got my foot on the brake. I've got my heel already starting to rock over because I'm going to blip the gas pedal with my heel here. So I'm braking. As I reach over for the shifter, I depress the clutch, move the gear out. So I pull it out of gear after I pop the clutch in, and I insert the gear lever into the next gear I'm going to get. And at that moment, right as I'm about to let the clutch up, I pop the throttle. So you zing the gas a little bit. At this point, hopefully, if you've waited late enough into your brake zone, so the revs aren't very high, you won't need to do like a zoom. You don't have to zoom it up to 7,000. It's likely you might have to zoom it up just the middle of the RPM gauge or something like that. So I've gotten it popped back into the gear I'm going to come out of the corner in. That's when I'm going to come off the clutch and pop the gas about the same time. You're trying to pop the gas a little bit before the clutch comes up, because you want the clutch to come up to the right amount of revs. So that's what what you're doing with the gas pedals. You're getting the revs where they need to be, and then you bring the clutch up, and you re-engage the clutch in your new gear to exit the corner.
Okay.
So just to help them just a little bit more, this is post turn in. You're doing the clutch.
So it's for me. I've been at this for a minute, so I'll shift the gear anywhere. So every turn is different. For the most part, I'm probably grabbing that downshift right at the end of the brake zone, right as I'm about to start turning in. So you can grab your I would say you're doing your clutch stuff right before you're going to start rotating, start arcing the corner. But depending on what it is, if it's not a really straight approach, if it's not like turn 1 at Watkins Glen, but sort of more like turn 1 at Road Atlanta, it might be a whole different approach. I'm downshifting as I'm going into turn 1. You know what I mean? In Road Atlanta, I'm turning and downshifting at the same time. Whereas at Watkins Glen, it's a pretty straightforward approach where you're just like bam, bam, and then you turn it. You know what I mean?
Right. So it's independent of turn in. It could be early. It could be later. It could be at the same time.
Right. And the most typical kind of I'm bombing down the straightaway going into a turn, a very straightforward turn. It's likely that you're going to be doing it right before you start turning in, but it could be dependent on other things. So I definitely am a driver who thinks about turning and driveline stuff completely separate. I'm not. Turns are one thing. How I get coming. So
your hands and your feet aren't necessarily tied.
I guess so. I mean, I guess for me, I've been doing this long enough that it all just falls into just one big approach of trying to pull the string as tight as I can around every corner and just get back to the gas as quickly as possible everywhere. I'm definitely thinking more about the driveline stuff and than I am about getting around a turn usually.
Okay. Does that help you, Vicky and Jen?
It does. I just want to add friggin' physics. Because that's what all this is. is trying to figure out the balances, the tires, the shifting of the weight, and again, a lot in play.
There's a lot of stuff to think about, chassis dynamics, that kind of thing. But I want to make you feel a little bit better because I don't know anything about physics. I'm a Latin major, and I learned all of my car control stuff slinging a 3/4 ton pickup truck down muddy dirt roads in Alabama. So I'm not thinking about any of this stuff. Usually, if I have to come back and review a concept, I'm learning it for the first time too. So thinking about things, I'm not usually consciously thinking about this stuff myself. And so you got to develop a butt dyno. You can't be running around trying to open this chapter of the book in your mind like, I'm coming to this turn. Let me open the book in my mind and think what am I going to do? It's all got to come down to muscle memory. And I mean, to me, the best way to have fun in the kind of racing that we do is to get all that stuff developed away from the race. I don't think you're going to learn this stuff effectively in a fun way in the middle of limits traffic. I mean, I have always had a blast in our kind of racing because I showed up kind of already not a fully developed driver, but a pretty developed driver. All the downshifting and the stuff we're talking through now was already mechanical to me. So I think that there's some value to going and spending some time away from the rush of competitions to learn how to drive, because I've definitely enjoyed racing, our kind of racing, more by being fairly capable at it when I showed up. So
in the back roads.
Well,
not back roads would be good, but just an empty racetrack.
HPDE.
For me, I was just trying not to die. I was trying not to wreck wreck the truck and get in trouble with my parents or die. That was my motivation for learning.
Yeah.
My parents are going to kill me if I take this truck off the road one more time.
Okay. So Jennifer and Vicky, next time we're at the HPDE, you guys are going to be solid.
Hey, so do you guys, when you guys go to the HPDEs, do you try to get as many rides as you can?
Many rides?
Ride along
Jump
with the
in the
instructors.
car with people like instructors, anybody else you can
Yeah,
ride
I
with.
got a problem with that.
Well, you got to get over it and get in that car. You'll learn so much from riding.
I actually have to take Dramamine. I end up motion sickness in the passenger side. I am fine behind the wheel.
Okay, so what about video? Can you watch video?
Yeah, I watch video.
I'll start you a video pipeline. We'll start pipelining some videos to you. But there's a lot of value because also the thing that's great about riding with people that you may not experience is I remember when I've been doing DEs for maybe a year or two, a couple seasons, and I got in the car with a Spec Miata driver and rode in his car. He was my instructor for the day or something like that. But I remember riding with him. It just completely changed my concept of what I could be getting away with in the car. I was like, I thought I was doing pretty good. And my own little Miata, it wasn't anywhere near a race car at that point. But I rode with this guy, and I was like, oh, he's violent. This guy's just wearing it out, And then I went and watched the race that weekend. He did pretty good. So I was like, okay. So to me, really feeling the way this guy could go flat out through the S's and all this sort of stuff, there's some value to that. So you might miss out on some of that, but also you can get a lot of that video.
Well, yes, I have watched some video, and the reason why I haven't really enjoyed the video was that I'm just looking at a guy driving. But it's also because I don't know, or I didn't know until I started doing Dominating with Dawson's, what to look for when I'm watching these videos. That's the difference as I'm going through. Now when I start watching videos, more so, that I will know what I'm looking for with the guy on the track. I'm just looking for his experience, but
you'll get to a point where you'll be like a snob, like, look at this turkey,
that was my last video that I watched of myself. I'm like, look at
look at this turkey.
Look at what jerk I am behind the wheel. Look how I'm driving.
Could I let go of the shifter ever?
The mistakes are obvious now that I'm like a couple years in.
Let's be sure to be very clear to anybody listening to this and all of you folks listening that I'm talking to. Always keep both your hands over. You can't ever take your hand like your hand comes off for just a second to shift gears. It's right back. Always both hands on the wheel. Right?
Yep.
We're all with that now.
Yeah. So also, because my video is up, not all videos that are up there should you be watching.
There's examples of what to do and examples of what not to do.
Exactly.
If you ever need examples of what not to do, go to Garage Heroes and Training on YouTube and watch Vicky.
And watch my videos of my first 2-3 races, and it is horrific.
But you must have had a good time because we're still here talking about it. So
I had a blast, but this is when you can see every mistake that I was making, and I identify all the mistakes I was making.
You identify some of the mistakes, not all.
Yeah.
Well, the good news is none of that matters, and you live to race another day, and I'm sure you learn some stuff.
Well, and that's the word right there, lived to see another day.
Right. I mean, for us, it's a little bit of a dangerous sport, so sometimes that's when it comes down to, hey, you made it, you got to race again. But I definitely think there's a lot of value to watch a video. And like if somebody posts a video where they've got the camera on their dashboard or the bumper or something, I'm not going to watch that. There's no value to video unless I can watch what the driver's doing, because then I'm like, oh, this guy's girl's good, or look how evil this car is. Like, there's a lot more value if I can see the arms and the legs working. That's why I watch somebody's video.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, Jen, you feeling better about your clutch movements, timing?
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit. All right. Well, that'll be something. That's one of the things I think if we go to the next HPD, that should be one of the 2 or 3 things you should focus on.
Okay.
Sure. It's always good to have a few goals for what you want to accomplish when you go to a DE. That's always something that I ask students. I'm like, hey, so what are we here working on this weekend? And luckily, if it's somebody who's got their A game, they're like, hey, I want to get better at going through turn 3 or something like that. But sometimes somebody just goes, oh, I don't know. So then we have to find something to work on. It's good to show up to an event like that with what you want to work on.
I want to go faster.
I just want to go faster. I just want to be better. Just be better.
More betterer.
More better.
You know how you can get to be more better? By listening to Dominating with Dawson. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Yeah.